In 1885, in the worn-out back room of a boarding house on the edge of Bitter Creek, Wyoming territory, Hannah Cole realized her body was starting to eat itself. Her crippled leg throbbed in mean, steady pulses every time she shifted her weight. But the emptiness low in her belly was worse. A hollow scrape that made her ribs feel like they were grinding together. The last of the flour in the tin was gray around the edges, bitter with age and specks she pretended not to see. But she cooked it anyway, because there was nothing else to cook. As the thin mush bubbled and spat, she pressed a small tin cookie cutter shaped like a star to her chest, like it could hold her together a little longer. Years ago, someone had promised her this land would never let her go hungry. Someone whose words she hadn't forgiven herself for believing. The room smelled of boiled starch and old smoke. Hannah's hands shook as she lifted the pot off the stove. Her fingers felt thick and clumsy, like they belonged to someone else. She had to brace herself with her good leg and the edge of the table just to keep from dropping the pan. The star-shaped cutter dug into her palm. She welcomed the sting. It proved she was still here. Her stomach clawed at her as she scraped the mush into the only clean bowl left. It hardly covered the bottom. When she tried to sit, her bad leg gave a sharp, white flash of pain from hip to ankle. The bone had never healed right after the fall. The doctor had said that in a careful, quiet voice, like he was setting a sentence on her without saying the word. "Not much we can do, Miss Cole," he'd told her months back, eyes already on the door. "Best you make your life small. Make your life small." She heard it now as clearly as she had that day. Her father's voice rose up against it. Rough, certain. "We're Coles. We don't shrink for anybody." Now he was buried on a hill she couldn't reach. The spread was gone, and all she had left of being a Cole was a limp and a star made of cheap tin. She forced herself to eat slow, each spoonful a careful act. Her tongue found grit in the mush. Weevils, probably. She chewed anyway, because if she thought about it too hard, she wouldn't swallow. And if she didn't swallow, she wouldn't see tomorrow. She opened the little leather-bound notebook she kept by the carve plate. The pages were thin with use, lines filled with her small, stubborn handwriting. On one side, dates. On the other, what she'd eaten. Half rations, quarter rations. Skipped, she wrote. Flour mush, quarter cup. Her hand trembled so badly she had to stop twice just to steady the pencil. The knock came sharp and fast, like knuckles that didn't believe in waiting. Hannah flinched. The pencil scratched a dark line across the page. Her heart climbed into her throat. The star slipped under her fingers. She grabbed it without thinking and closed her fist around it. "Miss Cole," the landlady's voice called. "Open up. We've got business." Hannah swallowed hard. Her throat felt raw from too many days of too little water. "1 minute," she managed, her voice thin, dry, like it had to fight its way past dust. Getting to the door was a slow battle. She pushed herself up, weight on her good leg, fingers white on the back of the chair. Every step sent a hot spike of pain up from her twisted ankle, through her bad knee. into the place in her hip that never stopped aching. By the time she reached the door, sweat had broken under her collar despite the chill. She opened it to Mrs. Hartley's narrow face and narrower eyes. The older woman's lips flattened as she took in the empty shelves, the nearly bare table. "You're late again." Mrs. Hartley lifted a folded paper, Sloane's bank seal pressed in red wax. Hannah's stomach dropped deeper than empty. "I told you," Hannah whispered. "I just need a little more time." "Time," Mrs. Hartley said, stepping inside, "is one thing Sloane never gives for free." Her skirts brushed Hannah's bad leg. The jolt made Hannah bite her cheek to keep from crying out. "He's coming tomorrow," she said, "to see if there's anything left worth taking." Hannah's eyes drifted to the corner where her father's trunk used to sit. Gone. Sold. Same as his saddle, his Sunday boots, the silver watch she once thought she'd be buried with. All that remained of him was his name on the debt, and the sound of his voice telling her to stand up straight. "I'll talk to him," she said. Foolish words. But they left her mouth. Anyway, Mrs. Hartley snorted. "Talk? To Seth Sloane? Girl, you can't even walk down the street without somebody pitying you or crossing the road. What do you think your words buy?" The star bit deeper into Hannah's palm. "I pay what I owe." Her voice shook, but the truth didn't. Mrs. Hartley's eyes softened for half a breath, then hardened again. "There is one way out," she said quietly. "One that doesn't end with you on the street or in some church basement eating charity stew." Hannah's chest tightened. "What way?" "Luke Danner's been asking after you," Mrs. Hartley whispered. "He'll take on your debt, if he gets you with it." Hannah's stomach clenched. Not from hunger now. Luke Danner. Big hands. Bigger talk. The kind of man who looked at a woman like he was checking a horse's teeth. "I'm not for sale." Her voice trembled, but the words stood firm. "The world doesn't care what you think you are," Mrs. Hartley said. "It cares what papers say and who signs them." "Tomorrow," she said. Noon. Sloane with his ledgers and his keys. Luke at the bank, waiting. "If you've got any sense left, you'll be there too." The door closed with a soft click, louder than a gunshot. Hannah stood there until her legs screamed at her. When she finally turned back, the bowl on the table was empty. She didn't remember finishing it. Her stomach still hurt. Her whole body hurt. She sank into the chair and laid the tin star on the table in front of her. Her hand shook as she spread her fingers across it, like she was trying to hold down a map in the wind. The metal blurred through her tears. "Not a thing," she whispered. "Not yet." But tomorrow, at noon, a man with clean boots and ink-stained fingers would walk into her life with ledgers and decisions that could turn that whisper into a lie. The news reached Elijah Brooks the way cold sometimes reaches deep bone. The kind that doesn't ask permission, doesn't knock, just slides under the door and lives there. It was Noah who told him. The boy burst into the tack room, breath sharp, cheeks wind-burned, boots too big for his thin frame. Elijah looked up from the broken stirrup leather in his hands. He knew danger by the way Noah gripped the doorway, like he needed it just to stay upright. "Uncle Eli." Noah's voice came thin, ragged around the edges. "They're saying a girl's starving in town. The one with the bad leg." Elijah's hands froze. For a long second, he didn't breathe. "Who's saying it?" His voice came out steady, too steady for the twist in his chest. "Cowhands on the road. Mrs. Hartley kicked her out. Sloane's coming tomorrow. And folks are saying—" Noah swallowed hard. "That Luke Danner's got plans for her." Plans. Noah didn't understand what that word meant in a man's mouth when winter was cold and a woman was alone. Elijah set the stirrup aside. The leather slipped from his fingers. The smallest movement, but it felt like dropping something larger, something he'd been holding shut for years. Grace's voice rose in him without warning. "Help the small ones, Eli. Help the ones nobody else sees." He swallowed hard. His throat worked slow, painful, memories with edges sharp enough to cut. "Come here," he said. Noah stepped close. Elijah set a hand on the boy's shoulder, felt the thinness beneath the shirt, the quiet trust there. For years, it had been just the two of them. Elijah protecting Noah. Noah watching Elijah try to outrun ghosts. "What else did you hear?" Noah stared at his boots. "They said she can't pay her debt. Said Sloane'll take whatever's left. Said she barely walks anymore." A beat. "Said Luke wants her for the winter." Elijah's jaw locked. Inside his head, something heavy shifted. Something dangerous deciding whether to wake. "And you came straight to me?" "Because—" Noah swallowed. "Because you're the one who helps people." Elijah's chest tightened, not with pride, with something closer, to fear. "Sit." Noah obeyed, perching on a crate. Elijah opened a drawer and took out a worn leather Bible. Grace's handwriting still hiding in the margins, brown ink fading, but hers. He set it in Noah's hands. "You remember this?" "Course I do." Grace had underlined one verse so many times the page had gone soft. "Whatever you do for the least of these." Elijah didn't say the rest. He didn't need to. Noah traced the faded line with a finger. She was someone's least, right? Elijah's throat burned. "They all are," he said quietly. "And town folks, sometimes they forget." Noah looked up then, really looked. The boy's eyes, too old for 10, searched Elijah the way Grace once had, like he could see the bruise beneath the bone. "Uncle Eli, if she wasn't white, if she was like us, would you still go?" The question cracked something clean in Elijah's chest. A slow breath left him, heavy as smoke. "If she was the meanest woman in Wyoming," he said, voice low but sure. "And she was starving." I'd still go. Noah nodded, small but fierce. But Elijah didn't move, not yet, because the past had its own voice, and tonight it spoke loud. Suddenly he was somewhere else. Another winter. Another woman. Grace's hand slipping from his as she struggled to breathe. The doctor refusing to come. Not risking my horse for her, and I don't treat her kind. Her kind. Elijah had held Grace through the night, her breath growing smaller, quieter, slipping into a place he couldn't follow. He'd carried her body out himself, snow stinging his face, and no one in that town had stepped forward, not even to open a door. He blinked, the memory folded back into the present. Noah watched him carefully. Elijah? And the thought came, easy now, steady. If I hesitate again, someone else will die. He rose slowly, his knees cracked. Old reminders of years riding fence lines alone. He grabbed his coat, pulling the weight of it over his shoulders. Get your scarf, Noah. Noah jumped to his feet. We're going? We're going. Town's gonna talk, the boy warned softly. They always talk. They'll say you're interfering. They'll say she ain't your problem. Elijah opened the door. Cold air slid in, sharp, immediate. She is now. Noah hesitated at the threshold. Uncle Eli. Are you doing this 'cause of Grace? Elijah didn't answer right away. He looked out into the dark, wind humming low, carrying the sharp scent of snow. He touched the leather Bible in Noah's hands. Grace's name still faintly pressed inside the cover. No, he said finally. I'm doing it 'cause Grace would have done it first. They stepped out into the cold. Elijah didn't look back at the ranch. He didn't need to. The path ahead was the only one he could live with. Tomorrow at noon, Sloan would come for a starving, crippled woman. Tonight, Elijah Brooks was going to reach her first. Hannah Cole didn't remember falling asleep. Only the moment she woke to her own breath catching in a sharp, frightened click in her throat. The bowl from earlier sat empty on the table, though she had no memory of finishing it. Her leg was stiff, cruel. A column of fire wrapped in cold. Every shift sent something deep in her hip grinding like broken stone. She tried to stand in the silence, but the world rushed sideways. Her hand shot out, grabbing the stove edge, knuckles white, breath thin. Her heartbeat felt wrong, too fast, too shallow, like her chest had shrunk around it. When the knock came, it didn't sound like a knock at all, more like the world outside had decided to hit the door until she answered. Hannah froze. Another knock. Harder, heavier, full of purpose. She swallowed, tasting metal. Mrs. Hartley? She hated how thin her voice sounded. Not Mrs. Hartley. A man's voice answered. Miss Cole? It's Elijah Brooks. Her stomach twisted. She'd heard the name. Whispers about the black rancher on the ridge. The one who kept to himself. The one some men spat on without ever meeting him. She didn't know what business he had with her. Her hands shook as she unlatched the door. It opened before she could brace herself. Elijah stood there, taller than she expected, breath steady, coat dusted with cold. But it was his eyes that caught her. A kind of anchored calm, the look of someone who'd walked through storms and learned to stay standing anyway. He took one long breath, and she saw the exact moment he understood how bad it was. She wasn't sitting, wasn't moving right. Her lips were cracked. Her shirt hung loose on her like she'd shrunk inside it. She tried to straighten. Her leg refused. "I'm fine." It was a lie with no skin on it. "You're not," Elijah answered quietly. "And I don't have time to pretend with you." Her vision blurred. The room tilted. She reached for the wall and missed. Elijah caught her before her body hit the floor. His arms were warm, shockingly warm, and the contact cracked something open inside her chest. Not pain, something worse, something like relief. She hated that feeling, hated needing anyone. "Put me down." No. It was the gentlest refusal she had ever heard. Her head fell against his shoulder. She didn't have the strength to hold it up. She felt the slow, controlled rise and fall of his breathing. A man who steadied himself on purpose. A man who'd carried weight heavier than her before. "Why are you here?" she managed. "Because nobody else came." She shook her head weakly. "You don't know me." "No," he said, keeping her steady with one arm while pulling a blanket from the chair. "But I know how a dying person sounds." Her pulse stumbled. "I'm not Hannah." He said her name like it mattered, like it wasn't attached to debt and dirt and pity. "You can barely stand. Don't argue with me tonight." He wrapped the blanket around her shoulders, so carefully it almost hurt. Her fingers closed around the star-shaped cookie cutter still in her fist. Elijah's eyes dropped to it. "That yours?" "It's nothing," she whispered, breath hitching. "It's all I have." Elijah didn't pry, just nodded once, like people had told him similar truths before. Outside, faint voices gathered. Men from the boarding house, the saloon, the shadows where gossip grew like weeds. Elijah adjusted his grip, lifting her fully in his arms. Her breath caught as her leg jostled, fire and ice exploding through it. Someone outside muttered, "There he is, taking her like he owns her." Another laughed. "White girl's desperate enough, I guess." Hannah flinched. Elijah's jaw tightened. He leaned close, voice low, steady. "You're not going with them. You're going with me. We clear?" She blinked up at him. "Why?" "Because you deserve a choice, Hannah. And right now, they're not giving you one." Footsteps blocked the path. Sloan, smelling of ink and cigar ash. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Evening, Brooks. You're a bit early. I wasn't planning on taking inventory till noon." "She's not on your list." Elijah's voice did not move. "She owes the bank." "I paid it." Hannah stiffened in his arms. You… what? Elijah didn't look at her. His glare stayed on Sloane. You heard me. Sloane chuckled. You think throwing money around makes you a hero? Folks will have something to say about a crippled white girl living at your place. Elijah stepped forward. The crowd shifted back. I don't buy people. I paid her debt so she can walk away from you. Luke Danner crowed from behind. She can't walk. That's the problem. Hannah felt the words like blows. Elijah didn't rise to it. She can stand when she chooses, and she chooses not to stand for you. A murmur rippled. Sloane leaned in, hissing, You're picking a fight you can't win. Elijah didn't flinch. I'm not fighting you. I'm removing her from a place she's not safe. He turned. Didn't ask permission. Didn't need to. Hannah's vision dimmed as he lifted her higher, her head sinking into the space between his collar and shoulder. She felt Noah drape another blanket over her legs. Then the world tilted. But this time because Elijah was moving, carrying her through a corridor of stairs, whispers, spiteful mouths. Her breath synced with his without her meaning it to. For the first time in months, she wasn't cold. For the first time in longer, she wasn't alone. Hannah woke to warmth she didn't trust. Her first breath came sharp, frightened, scraping the back of her throat like she'd swallowed dust. She didn't know where she was, didn't remember how she'd gotten horizontal, or who had laid this heavy quilt over her body, or why her arm wasn't numb from sleeping on the floor. Her hand flew to her chest. The tin star. She felt its cold shape through the blanket, right above her heart. Relief hit fast. Then shame hit faster. She tried to push herself up. Her bad legs screamed, not rising in pain but detonating. A bright, blinding burst up her thigh, into her hip, all the way to her ribs. She gasped, folding forward, breath shaking uncontrollably. But she forced herself upright anyway. Her palm landed on a wooden nightstand. Her fingers trembled so hard they left damp prints on the surface. She blinked, trying to steady the room, but everything swayed, softly, like the world reminding her she had no balance left. A door creaked. She whipped her head toward it and nearly lost the fight to stay upright. Elijah Brooks filled the doorway. His coat was gone. His shirt sleeves rolled. His hair still held the ghost of wind. But it was his eyes. Dark, steady, unbearably calm, as if he'd been expecting her panic. You're awake, he said quietly. Hannah's breath caught again. Where am I? Cedar Ridge Ranch. No triumph, no claim, just fact. You fainted on the way. I didn't faint, she whispered. He raised one eyebrow, not mocking, just honest. Honest enough to sting. Noah slipped into view behind him, carrying a mug in both hands like it was something sacred. It's warm broth, Noah said softly. Uncle Eli said you need something soft first. Hannah's throat tightened. I don't need… You do, Elijah said. Not unkind. Steady. Something you could lean on, if you dared. She didn't. She braced on her good leg and tried to stand straighter. The room tilted sharply. Her knee buckled. Elijah moved before she fell, his hand catching her elbow, steady, gentle. "Don't," she whispered. "Please, I can stand." "You are standing," he said softly. "Pitch." "First. Because I'm holding you up." The truth of it twisted something in her chest. She pulled her arm back, not violently, just enough to reclaim the small dignity she had left. The motion jolted her leg. Pain flared hot. Her breath shuddered out in a broken sound far too loud in the quiet room. Noah set the mug on the table. "We can leave it," he said softly. "If that's better." Hannah closed her eyes. She hated this, being the one that needed, the one that shook, the one that broke in other people's arms. "Why did you bring me here?" Her voice was hoarse. Elijah didn't answer right away. He stepped closer, not looming, just present, and lowered himself onto the chair beside her bed. The wood creaked under his weight. His hands rested on his knees, steady, patient. "Because you were dying." She flinched. "You don't know that." "I've seen dying." His voice softened, then roughened. "You looked like someone who hadn't been touched by kindness in a long time." Her chest tightened painfully. "Kindness always costs something." "Not from me." She laughed, short, bitter. "Everyone wants something." Elijah leaned forward slightly. "What do you think I want?" "I don't know," she snapped, then shrank at her own sharpness. Her breath shook again. "But nobody pays someone's debt without wanting something." Noah's gaze dropped. Elijah's didn't. "I didn't pay to own you," Elijah said. "I paid to keep Sloane and Luke from owning your choices." Her heartbeat stumbled. He continued more gently. "You can stay here till spring. Longer, if it takes that. You'll earn your keep the way you choose, not the way men like them choose for you." "You don't know me," she whispered. "No," he said. "But I know what it's like to be talked about like you're a problem instead of a person." Her eyes snapped to him. He didn't explain. He didn't need to. Whatever lived in his voice, something old, wounded, worn thin, told her exactly what he meant. She exhaled shakily. Her fingers curled around the tin star through the blanket. "I don't want charity." "Good," Elijah replied. "I wasn't offering it." She turned, blinked, unsure. He nodded toward the notebook on the nightstand, the one she'd dropped in her panic. "You keep books. You write figures. I saw the pages in your bag. Cedar Ridge could use someone who sees what we miss." Her lips parted, but no sound came. Elijah rose, slow, deliberate, and set the tin star on the table. "You dropped this," he said softly. "Looked like something worth keeping." Her throat closed. Noah tugged his sleeve. "We should let her rest." Elijah nodded. He stepped toward the door, paused, one hand on the frame. You don't owe me anything, Hannah, he said quietly. That's the point. He left before she could answer. The silence he left behind wasn't empty. It was terrifying in its gentleness. Hannah sank back onto the bed, hands shaking, heart hammering against the tiny cold star pressed to her chest. She didn't know if she believed him, didn't know if she could. But for the first time in months, she wasn't preparing to survive the night. She was preparing to wake up tomorrow. Hannah Cole learned quickly that quiet could cut just as deep as cruelty. 3 weeks at Cedar Ridge, and the rhythm of the ranch had begun to seep into her bones. Not peace. She didn't trust a word like that, but something steadier. Something like breathing without bracing first. Most mornings she woke before Elijah or Noah stirred. Her leg throbbed in its familiar, merciless way. But she'd learned how to swing her good foot to the floor first, then pull herself upright by the dresser. Tiny victories, every one of them private. She kept books at the kitchen table, numbers scratched in tight lines, lips moving silently as she calculated feed, winter stores, debts owed to the ranch, instead of by her for once. Each page steadied her more than broth or blankets ever could. Noah usually hovered near her elbow, pretending to read his primer while sneaking glances every time she winced. "You don't have to stay," she'd murmur. "I know," he'd say, and keep right on sitting there. But today, when he came running into the kitchen, his breath was sharp the way news is sharp. "Hannah," he said, voice pitched too high, "people in Bitter Creek are talking again." Her hand stopped mid-line over the ledger. A familiar chill slid down her spine, the kind that didn't come from winter. "What are they saying?" Noah hesitated. That alone was enough to twist something deep in her gut. Elijah stepped in behind the boy, brushing dust off his sleeves. He took one look at Noah's face and stopped walking. "What did you hear?" Elijah asked. "They said," Noah swallowed. "They said Cedar Ridge is different now." The pause hurt. "And?" Elijah pressed gently. Noah looked at Hannah, then away. "They said Uncle Eli's keeping a white cripple in his house, and that you," his voice cracked, "you're paying him back the only way you can." Hannah went still, completely still. Her heart didn't stop, but it felt like it did. One long, crushing beat followed by a cold hollow afterward. The pencil slipped from her fingers. She didn't hear it hit the table. She stared straight ahead, jaw tight, hands trembling. The ledger blurred. Her breath came thin, barely there. Elijah moved first. He stepped closer, voice lower than usual, gentler, like he was approaching a wounded horse. "Don't listen to that." But she already had. It was inside her now, a sickness she knew too well. "That's what they think of me?" she whispered. Elijah didn't answer quickly enough. Silence filled the space his voice should have covered. Her throat tightened until it hurt. Noah tried to say something, anything, but words abandoned him. Hannah pushed back from the table abruptly. The chair legs scraped. She grabbed its edge to steady herself, legs shaking violently, but she still forced herself upright. Elijah reached toward her. She flinched like he'd raised a hand. "I'm not staying here to ruin your name," she said. The words came thin and wild, churned by shame. "I won't be the reason people stop doing business with you." Elijah's jaw clenched. "What happens in my house is not their concern." "But it is," she said, breathing too fast. "You know it is. You paid my debt. You carried me out in front of everyone. Now they think—" "Hannah." The quiet weight in his voice nearly undid her. She had to look away. She couldn't let him see what those words had done inside her. How quickly they stuck to all the old scars. Being a burden. Being a mistake. Being something to hide. A knock interrupted them. Sharp, clerical, confident. Elijah opened the door just enough to block the view inside. But Hannah could still see the man on the porch. Reverend Pike, hat in hand, expression politely troubled. "Elijah," Pike began, "I'm here." With concern. Hannah closed her eyes. Of course. Elijah kept his voice even. "What concern?" "The town," Pike said. "Rumors travel fast. People wondering about propriety. A young woman under your roof. Her condition. Your reputation. The boy." Noah stiffened behind Elijah. "And I thought," Pike continued, carefully, "perhaps Miss Cole would be more protected in the church's care, or the ladies' charity home in town." Protected. The word scraped Hannah raw. Protected. Like she was an object, a burden, a problem to be handed off, a thing. Elijah exhaled slowly. His shoulders tensed. Not with anger, but with something older, deeper. "Reverend," he said, "this house is the safest she's been in years, and no one here will ask her to explain herself." "It's not about explanation," Pike said. "It's about appearances. People are saying—" "I know what they're saying." The calm in Elijah's voice shifted, darkened. Pike swallowed. "I mean no disrespect. I'm trying to help her, and you. I thought it best to speak before the gossip grows teeth." Hannah's body went cold. She didn't want Elijah defending her, defending them. It only made the rumors sharper. She stepped forward, gripping the back of the chair to keep from collapsing. "Reverend," she said softly. Both men turned. Her voice trembled, but she forced the words out anyway. "My staying here is temporary. I'll find somewhere else." Noah whispered, "Hannah, don't." But she cut him off with a tiny shake of her head. Pike nodded, relieved. "That may be wise. Sometimes distance is the mercy people need." Elijah spoke before she could respond. "No," he said, firm but quiet. "She stays." The room stilled. Hannah stared at him, breath caught painfully. "You don't get to decide that," she whispered. "Neither do they," he said, nodding toward the door. "You do." Those words. They struck something tender in her chest. something that hurt worse than her leg because it wanted so badly to believe him. Pike cleared his throat. Elijah, there's another matter. He pulled off his hat entirely, a sign he expected the next part to wound. It concerns her father. Hannah's stomach twisted. Pike continued, cautious. Jacob Cole once barred you from the town well during a drought. Told folks you weren't fit to drink beside them. Elijah didn't look at Pike. He didn't look at Hannah either. His silence was a scar opening. Hannah's breath shattered. My father did that? Pike bowed his head. People remember sins long after the sinner is gone. Hannah's hand flew to her mouth as if she could hold the shame in. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. Elijah finally looked at her, and his voice, low, steady, unbearably kind, broke her completely. What your father did doesn't change the choice in front of us now. Us. He'd said us. Her knee buckled. Elijah moved before she fell, but didn't touch her this time. He just stepped close enough for her to borrow his steadiness. She whispered, I'm sorry. You don't owe me that, he replied. But his eyes said the truth. The past was heavier than either of them wanted to admit. Morning came too quietly. Hannah couldn't tell if the silence in her chest was calm or the kind that comes right before something breaks. She rose slowly, fingers gripping the quilt as she pushed herself upright. Her injured leg pulsed a warning, sharp, electric, but she'd grown used to moving through pain the way other people walked through weather. Pain was predictable. People weren't. She dressed with careful movements, every button fastened with hands that shook more than she wanted to admit. The echo of yesterday's conversation clung to her like smoke, whispers, Reverend Pike's concern, the truth about her father poisoning the air between her and Elijah. By the time she reached the kitchen, Elijah and Noah were already there. The boy grinned when he saw her, bright as sunrise. You're up, Noah said. I saved you the warm biscuit. Warm biscuit. 2 simple words. Yet they landed like something blooming inside her chest. Thank you, she murmured, smoothing his hair. Elijah glanced up from the stove. No hesitation. No strain. Morning, Hannah. She answered back. But her throat tightened around the syllables. He should hate her father. He should resent her. He should resent what she represented, what the town thought she represented. But he didn't look away. He just waited. Why? The question throbbed inside her all morning. Later, she sat at the big oak table going through feed numbers again. She tapped one column, recalculated, frowned, recalculated again. You're doing that face, Noah said from beside her, kicking his heels against the chair leg. What face? The something's wrong but I won't say it out loud face. Hannah let out a breath, thin and brittle. Your eyes are too sharp. Uncle Eli says that's a good thing. Noah leaned closer. Are you okay? She swallowed. She didn't want to lie to him. Not to the boy who'd begun looking at her like she was more than someone who limped through the house. Her fingers tapped the ledger. I'm not sure I make this place better. All the trouble that's come because of me. That's not true, Noah said instantly. You're the reason we didn't run out of hay last week. And the reason I know how to spell porridge now. And the reason Uncle Eli doesn't look so tired anymore. Her breath stuttered at that last part. I didn't do that. Yes, you did, Noah insisted. He laughs more. A warmth she didn't trust, didn't dare trust, rose beneath her ribs. She bent forward, gripping the table edge to steady herself. Noah, what if someone like me isn't worth the trouble? The boy stared at her, serious, far older than his years. If I lost my leg, he said, would you still think I was worth something? Her chest tightened. Of course. Then why don't you believe that about yourself? The question knocked the breath clean out of her. By afternoon, the ranch hands returned from town. Their boots were loud in the mudroom, their voices louder. Hannah kept her head low as she carried a tray of folded linens toward the back hall. But then she heard it. One low voice not meant for her ears. I'm telling you, one cowhand muttered, folks don't want to deal with us anymore. They think the boss is keeping that crippled white girl for, well, you know. Another man snorted. Should have sent her off with the Reverend. Everything got harder since she came. Her fingers froze around the linens. Breath caught mid-chest. Harder. Burden. Problem. The words struck with familiar precision, like nails hammered into old scars. Someone hushed them. Boots shifted nervously. But the damage was done. She backed away, step by silent step, until she reached the hallway. The linens slipped from her grasp, falling in a soft pile at her feet. Her hands trembled violently. They're right. Something whispered. You're costing him everything. Business. Reputation, peace. Her injured leg spasmed, nearly buckling. She leaned hard on the wall, breath turning to short, panicked gasps. Not again. Not here. Not in front of people. She dragged herself into her small room and shut the door quietly. Too quietly. Quiet like surrender. She pressed her forehead to the wood and whispered to no one, I don't belong anywhere. The admission burned, but it felt true. She sank onto the bed, hands squeezing tight until her knuckles ached. She stared at the cracked floorboard, then at the small, star-shaped cookie cutter on the nightstand, her one remaining piece of the life she'd lost. The metal looked dull today, used up, like something kept only out of pity. Maybe they'd be better off without me. She didn't cry, not aloud, but her breath shook in harsh, unsteady pulls, like her ribs didn't know how to hold the weight anymore. Outside her room, footsteps passed. Elijah's voice murmured something to Noah, warm and low. It should have comforted her. Instead, it twisted deeper. Because kindness from a good man could be the worst pain of all when you felt unworthy of it. She turned the cookie cutter over in her hand, the metal cold as truth. Tonight, or soon, she would have to choose. Stay, and be the burden everyone said she was. or leave, and finally free Elijah Brooks from the damage her existence brought. Neither choice felt like survival. Both felt like loss. And yet, something faint, something stubborn, throbbed beneath all that fear. The memory of Noah's voice. Then why don't you believe that about yourself? It wasn't hope. Not yet. But it was something fighting to breathe. Something that might matter, if she let it. The first wind hit before sundown. One hard slap against the side of the house that made the window pane tremble. Hannah heard it, felt it, but didn't move. She sat on the edge of her bed, hands knotted in her skirt, eyes fixed on the small, star-shaped cookie cutter on the nightstand. It looked like a lie tonight, like a thing meant for someone gentler, stronger, better than her. The voices she'd overheard earlier repeated in her skull, each one sharper than the last. Folks don't want to deal with us anymore. Everything got harder since she came. A crippled white girl, paying him back the only way she can. Shame washed through her in slow, burning waves. She forced herself to stand. Her leg buckled, a jolt of pain shooting through her thigh. She bit down a cry, caught herself on the nightstand, and stayed there, breathing tight, shallow, almost soundless. Outside, the wind screamed again. It sounded like something calling her name. Hannah grabbed a small cloth sack and stuffed inside what little she owned. A crust of bread, a dull butter knife, a thin shawl. She hesitated, then reached for the cookie cutter. The metal was icy against her fingers, as if warning her. "I can't stay," she whispered. "Not when I'm costing him everything." The truth of it settled into her bones with terrible clarity. Leaving would hurt. Staying would hurt Elijah more. She wrapped the star in the shawl and tucked it deep into the sack. Then she opened the door. Every step down the hallway sent fire up her bad leg, but pain felt deserved tonight. She passed Noah's room, heard him humming softly in his sleep. The sound nearly broke her. She pressed a hand to her mouth, swallowing the ache. "I'm sorry," she mouthed, though he couldn't hear her. At the back door, she paused. Her breath fogged the glass. Wind shoved against the frame like a hungry animal. Hannah braced herself, opened the door, and stepped into the storm. Snow slammed into her face instantly, cold needles tearing at her skin. The world vanished in white chaos. The air tasted like iron. She leaned on the makeshift cane Elijah had carved for her last week. It sank nearly a foot into the drifts. Her body protested every movement. Her breath came hard and ragged. The cold dug its claws deep, but she pushed forward. One step, then another, then another. "Just get to the road," she told herself. "Just make it out of his life. Make it easier for him." Wind howled so loud it drowned her voice. She stumbled, caught herself, kept going. Her injured leg screamed now, each step a knife twisting deeper. Her fingers went numb around the cane. Her hair whipped across her eyes, freezing to her cheeks. Still, she moved. The ranch disappeared behind her, swallowed by snow. I imagined Elijah inside, safe, warm, better off without her. And the thought stabbed deep enough to keep her upright. She didn't see the ice patch until her foot slid. She fell hard. Her chin cracked against the frozen ground. A flash of white pain exploding behind her eyes. Her cane skittered away. Snow filled her mouth, her nose, her collar. She gasped, choking on cold, clawing for something, anything, to pull herself upright. Her hand hit fabric. The sack. Something metal clinked inside. The cookie cutter. She closed her eyes. A memory surfaced. The gentlest one she had left. Her mother's voice soft and warm. Stars remind us where home is, even when we lose sight of it. Hannah's chest caved in. I don't have a home, she whispered into the snow. The storm didn't disagree. She tried to rise, dragging her useless leg beneath her. Pain jolted through her spine. Darkness edged her vision. The wind pulled at her, colder, harder, almost triumphant. She collapsed again. Her fingers dug weakly into the snow. If I disappear, he won't have to pay for me anymore. Her body trembled. Part cold, part shame, part the growing, terrifying truth that she wasn't going to make it far. She wasn't even sure she wanted to. Snow packed against her ribs. Her breaths shortened. Her hands shook uncontrollably. Above the wind, she thought she heard something distant. A voice. No. Two voices. Calling her name. Hannah blinked, dizzy. Maybe the storm was playing tricks. Or maybe... Light flickered in the white darkness. A lantern swinging fast. Hooves thrashing through snow. Elijah's voice, rough, afraid, louder than any wind, cut through the blizzard. Hannah! Her heart lurched painfully. She tried to lift her head, but her neck felt carved from ice. She managed only a faint, cracked sound. Elijah! Her face hit the snow again. The world tilted. She felt strong arms lift her. Heat against cold, steadiness against collapse. She felt the world jolt as Elijah pulled her to his chest. His breath hit her ear, harsh and shaking. Why would you do this? He whispered. Not angry, but wounded, terrified. Her eyes fluttered. She clung weakly to his coat. I heard what they said. I didn't want to ruin your life. Elijah tightened his hold, voice breaking. You think losing you would save me? She managed a trembling inhale. You deserve better. You deserve to live, he said, fierce and shaking. And I won't let the world take another woman from me while I stand and watch. That last line cracked something in both of them. Her body sagged into his. She felt herself slipping. Down, down, away. But she clutched at his coat with the last strength she had. Elijah, she breathed. I've got you, he answered. Not losing you. Not tonight. Snow swirled around them, but it no longer touched her. Not while he carried her. Not while he ran. Not while she drifted into the dark, hearing only one sound, his heartbeat against her ear, furious, terrified, alive. Elijah didn't remember getting back to the house, only flashes. Noah's frightened breath at his side, the lantern bobbing wildly, the slam of the back door, his boots pounding across the kitchen floor with Hannah's limp weight in his arms. He laid her near the stove, hands shaking so badly he nearly dropped her. Heat rolled out in waves, too soft, too slow compared to the violent cold eating her skin. "Hannah," he said, kneeling hard enough that his knee cracked. "Stay with me. Look at me." Her eyelids fluttered. Barely. A faint tremor moved through her lips. He grabbed a blanket, wrapped it around her shoulders, pulled her upright against his chest. Her body was stiff, trembling like a frightened animal. Her breath hitched, vanished, then came back in uneven gulps. "You're safe," Elijah whispered. She shook her head, tiny, broken. "No, I'm not." Her voice was barely audible, but the defeat in it was sharp enough to cut him. "You should have let me go," she rasped. Elijah felt his throat close. Noah hovered behind him, eyes wide, trying not to cry. Elijah swallowed hard. "I'm not letting you die in a snowbank. You shouldn't have to keep saving me." "I don't have to," he said, voice rough. "I choose to." That made her flinch, not because she didn't believe him, because she did. And that was worse. Her teeth chattered. "I heard them," she said, words shaking. "In the mudroom, saying I'm ruining everything, that you should have left me to the Reverend. They're right. I'm trouble for you, for Noah, for the ranch." He shook his head, but she kept going, voice rising in jagged breaths. "My father hurt you. The whole town hates you because of me. Contracts breaking, people talking. I didn't want to stay and watch them punish you for being kind." Her fingers clutched the blanket until her knuckles went white. "I didn't want to be the reason you suffer, again." Elijah closed his eyes. Grace. The memory hit him like a blow, her last night. The doctor turning him away from his own doorstep, saying they didn't treat her kind. Grace gasping for breath while he ran back through rain, shouting her name, praying he wouldn't be too late. He hadn't made it in time. He hadn't saved her, and the guilt had lived in his bones ever since. Cold, constant, merciless. Now, watching Hannah shiver in his arms, he felt that same terror rise. The fear of losing someone because the world was too cruel to let them live in peace. "Hannah," he said softly, "look at me." She did, eyes glassy from cold and humiliation. "You think leaving would fix things," he said. "But losing you would break me more than any gossip, any contract, any coward in Bitter Creek ever could." Her breath caught. "Why?" He hesitated. Not because he didn't know, but because the truth felt too raw, too close to the bone. "Because," he said slowly, "the day you came here, this house stopped feeling so damn empty." Her eyes widened. She looked away immediately, like the words were a flame too bright to face. He reached out, gently brushing a wet strand of hair from her forehead. "You didn't ruin this place," he said. "You brought it back to life." Hannah's throat tightened. "I'm tired of being a burden." "You're not. You don't know that." "I do." His voice dropped low. "Because burdens don't make a boy smile again. Burdens don't save a winter with a page of numbers. Burdens don't fight to earn their keep even when they can barely stand." Her breath shook. He cupped the back of her head, guiding her gently to rest against his chest. She resisted for a second. Then the fight drained out of her. She sagged into him, not from weakness, but from exhaustion. Bones deep, soul deep. Exhaustion. Noah came closer, kneeling beside them. "We need you, Hannah," he whispered. "Both of us do." Hannah's face crumbled. She pressed her forehead to Elijah's shirt, a soft, strangled sound escaping her. Half sob, half relief, all pain finally given a place to fall. "I didn't want to die out there," she whispered against him. "I just didn't know how to stay." Elijah wrapped both arms around her, holding her steady, holding her together. "You stay," he murmured, "by letting us stay with you, by letting us help. You're not meant to carry this world alone." She closed her eyes, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. He shook his head, tightening his hold. "Everyone deserves to be wanted," he said, "even when they can't believe it yet." Her breath hitched again, but gentler this time, a tremor of something shifting inside her. "I'm so tired, Elijah." "I know," he said. "Rest. I've got you." He looked over at Noah. "Stir up the embers. More heat." Noah nodded and ran. Elijah kept holding Hannah, through trembling breaths, through the slow return of warmth, through the fragile surrender of someone who had never been held without conditions. Outside, the storm raged against the house. Inside, for the first time in a long time, Hannah let someone else guard the door against the cold. She wasn't healed. She wasn't saved. But she was no longer alone. And that was the beginning of something she didn't have a name for yet. Hannah woke near sunset, warmth pooling under her skin, the fog of last night's storm still clinging to her. Her first words were barely sound. "Did I make things worse?" Elijah knelt beside her. "You're alive. That's all that matters." Before he could say more, Noah burst in, breathless. "Elijah, 2 riders coming. They've got papers." Papers. Nothing good rode in on paper in Bitter Creek. Elijah stood, jaw locking. "Stay here," he told Hannah. "Please." But Hannah pushed herself toward the kitchen doorway as the knock hit, hard and sure. Elijah opened the door halfway. Sloane stood there, Luke Danner beside him, and behind them, Reverend Pike, face tight with guilt. Luke lifted an envelope like a trophy. "We've come for the girl." Elijah's voice dropped. "She has a name. Not in the eyes of the law, Sloane said. We filed a petition. She's unfit to care for herself. Guardianship transfers to Luke or the church tomorrow morning. The words slammed into Hannah like a fist. Unfit. Incapable. Not a person. An object. Luke tipped his hat toward her. I'll treat you well. Warm bed. Hot meals. You'll stay real close. His eyes made the meaning foul. She's not going anywhere, Elijah said softly. Luke smirked. Law says otherwise. Elijah handed him a folded note. Debts paid. You own nothing tied to her. Debts aren't the issue, Sloane replied. Competence is. Hannah's breath shook. Elijah turned toward her. But she looked at the floor, throat tight. Pike stepped forward. Elijah, the town signed. The judge wants a hearing. People fear impropriety. Hannah whispered, broken. They think I can't choose my own life. They're wrong, Elijah said. Luke's grin widened. Tomorrow at 10, she walks out with us. No, Elijah said. She walks where she chooses. Luke's face twisted, but he turned and rode off, snow slicing behind him. Sloane followed. Pike hesitated. Hannah, the town believes they're helping you. She lifted her eyes, furious and trembling. From what? Kindness? A roof? A man who doesn't want anything from me? Pike had no answer. After he left, Elijah shut the door and breathed once, slow, controlled, before facing her. They want to take my choices, she whispered. You'll speak for yourself tomorrow, Elijah said. I'll stand beside you. Noah edged closer. We'll show them you can choose. Hannah touched the cookie cutter under her dress. The metal felt different tonight. Less like a relic, more like a promise. I want to walk into that hearing myself, she said. Elijah nodded. Then that's how we go. Fear still lived in her chest, but something stronger pressed against it. Determination. Tonight she didn't feel like running. Tomorrow, she would fight. The church hall was already full when Elijah and Hannah arrived. Heat, breath, judgment, all of it pressed against her like a wall she had to walk through. Her injured leg trembled, but she forced it forward, leaning on the cane Elijah had carved. He didn't touch her. He didn't guide her. He walked beside her, exactly as she'd asked. Sloane stepped up front, papers in hand. Town of Bitter Creek, he said loudly. We're here to settle guardianship over Miss Hannah Cole, an unfit woman who... I'm not unfit, Hannah said. The room fell silent. Even the dust seemed to pause. Reverend Pike cleared his throat. We'll let each party speak. Luke strutted forward. She needs a man with means, a roof, order. I'm offering her a future, a proper one. Eyes swept over her leg, measuring her worth by inches. People murmured approval. Sloane continued. She cannot walk without help, cannot earn. And living with a colored rancher. Elijah rose before the sentence finished. Not loud, not rushed. Let me tell you what she can do. He unfolded a small ledger page, Hannah's handwriting. She kept this ranch fed, counted every bale, stretched every dollar. She taught my nephew to read. She saved our winter. His voice hardened, steady as stone. And if the measure of a woman is her legs and the color of the man standing beside her, then half this town is more crippled than she's ever been. Gasps, a few curses, but no one walked out. Luke snarled, "You trying to shame us, Brooks?" "No," Elijah said. "I'm telling the truth." He stepped aside, and Hannah, hands shaking, breath unsteady, forced herself to stand. Every step forward was pain. Every breath felt like pulling a rope through her chest. But she stood. "Luke," she said softly, "you don't want to protect me. You want to own me." He flinched. "You call me weak," she continued, "but you're the one who needs a court and a crowd to take a woman who doesn't want you." Whispers rippled. Her voice softened, but strengthened too. "I choose where I live. I choose whose home feels safe. And if I belong anywhere, it's with the people who see me as whole." She looked at Elijah, and for a heartbeat, Bitter Creek saw what was in her eyes. Pike raised both hands. "Miss Cole has clearly demonstrated competence of choice. The petition is void." Luke exploded. "This isn't over." "It is today," Elijah replied. Outside, the cold bit at them, sharp and clean. Hannah's knees buckled. Elijah caught her, not to hold her up, but to steady her until she found her footing. She breathed out, shaky. "I didn't fall." "No," he said, "you didn't." Her hand brushed his coat, not grabbing, just resting. For the first time, she didn't feel like something carried. She felt like someone chosen. The days after the hearing felt different. Not lighter, not easier, but truer. People still whispered in Bitter Creek. Contracts still slipped away. Some customers refused to shake Elijah's hand. But when he walked through town now, he didn't flinch. Hannah noticed that, because she walked beside him, and that changed everything. Work at the ranch doubled. Winter bit harder. Money thinned. But Hannah threw herself into the ledgers, ate at the table with Elijah and Noah, learned the rhythm of the kitchen, the quiet between meals, the way the house breathed when 3 people moved through it instead of one. One evening, she spread the account book across the table. "You're losing too much keeping the sick cattle," she murmured. Elijah studied her face instead of the numbers. "What do you suggest?" "Sell the weak ones. Keep the mothers. Stretch feed. Rotate grazing slower." Noah looked between them, grinning. "She's always right." Elijah's lips twitched. "I know." That tiny smile did something warm and dangerous inside her chest. A week later, Elijah called her outside at dusk. He stood by the gate with a black iron sign leaning against a fence post, a star inside a horseshoe. "Star Haven, Cedar Ridge Ranch." Hannah's breath caught. "You made this?" Had it forged. Elijah lifted the sign easily, though emotion made his voice rough. Couldn't think of a name that fit better. Her fingers brushed the cold metal. Why a star? He held her gaze. Because the night I found you, that little tin star was the only warm thing on you. Her throat closed. She couldn't speak at first. When he hung the sign between the gateposts, Noah clapped, cheering like they'd built a castle instead of a ranch entrance. Hannah touched the star again. It feels like a beginning. Elijah nodded once. It is. Later, during supper, Elijah toyed with the edges of his cup before finally speaking. Hannah, he said, voice low but steady. The ranch paperwork. There's room to add another owner. She froze. He continued. You've held this place together. You earned a say in its future. I want you to have it, not as charity, as a partner. Her heart seemed to stop, then surge painfully. Elijah, are you sure? I've never been more sure. He held her eyes. I don't want a house half full anymore. Noah chimed in, serious as a preacher. You belong here. Hannah swallowed hard. Memories flickered. Cold nights, cruel whispers, the feeling of being a burden even to herself. Belonging had never been offered to her without strings. Until now. Her voice cracked on the answer. Yes, I'll stay. Elijah's shoulders eased, just barely, but enough for her to see how long he'd carried the weight of that question. They finished supper slowly, almost reverently, like people learning what a home sounded like. 5 winters passed, not quietly, not easily, but honestly, brick by brick, breath by breath. Star Haven became something neither Elijah nor Hannah had dared imagine. The ranch no longer echoed when one person walked through it. There were footsteps now. Different weights, different rhythms. A teenage boy missing an arm who mucked stalls with a stubborn grin. A widow who baked bread before sunrise. A shy mixed-race girl who found safety in Noah's stories. People who had nowhere else to go found the gate open, and Hannah walked among them, not quickly, not without pain, but with a steadiness earned through every storm she'd survived. Her cane was new now, carved by Elijah from an old fence post. A star was etched near the handle. She touched it when her leg protested, grounding herself. Tonight, she stood in the kitchen, leaning slightly on that cane, stirring a small pot of soup. A soft coo came from the cradle behind her. A baby girl. Warm. Breathing. Safe. Hannah bent slowly, lifting the child with practiced gentleness. The baby curled into her shoulder, tiny fingers gripping her collar. You hungry again, little star? She whispered. The words caught in her throat, not from pain, but from the weight of how far they'd come. Tiny footsteps pattered in. Noah, older now, taller than her shoulder, smiled wide. Uncle Eli's outside, he said. He wants you to come see something. Hannah lifted the baby higher and followed Noah through the hall. Her limp was still there, honest, visible, unhidden. She'd stopped apologizing for it long ago. Outside, Elijah waited near the gate. He was older, too. Lines deeper around his eyes, beard more silver than black. But when he saw her, something soft and steady rose in his face, and the same warmth he'd carried since the night he found her in the snow. He rested one hand on the iron sign. Star Haven, Cedar Ridge Ranch. A fresh piece of metal gleamed beneath it. Hannah stepped closer. It was her cookie cutter. The same tin star she'd clutched the night she nearly died. Cleaned, straightened, welded to the sign like a signature no wind or winter could tear away. Her breath trembled. You kept it. I kept everything that saved you, Elijah said, and everything you saved in me. The baby fussed softly. Elijah reached out, brushing her cheek with a finger, gentleness outweighing the roughness of his hands. She's going to grow up knowing this place because of you, he murmured. Hannah swallowed hard. Because of us. He nodded, slow, certain. Because of us. They stood in silence, the kind of silence that held gratitude, not fear, the kind that tasted like a second chance still warm in their hands. Behind them, inside the kitchen window, the light glowed on a small shelf. Grace's old Bible, a chipped mug Noah painted as a boy, a tiny star carved from cedar, a home built from loss, held together by choice. Hannah leaned her head lightly against Elijah's shoulder. Do you ever think about what would have happened if Sloan had won? Elijah's arm slipped around her waist. Sometimes, he said. Then I look at all this and stop thinking about the world that could have been. He kissed the top of her hair. This is the one we chose. Hannah looked at the sign again. Her star, his name, their future welded into the same frame. For the first time in her life, the word home didn't hurt. It fit. In the end, Hannah and Elijah didn't build their life on the easy things. They built it on the choices that cost something. Courage on her worst days, patience on his loneliest nights, and the quiet belief that two hurting souls could still find a place to belong. Star Haven didn't erase their scars. It simply gave those scars a home. And maybe that's the truest kind of healing the West ever offered. Learning that love doesn't arrive loud or perfect, but steady, warm, and willing to stay. If Hannah's journey touched your heart, time 700 mems. If Elijah's loyalty reminded you of someone you once knew, or if Star Haven felt like a place you'd want to sit for a while, I'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments, your stories, your memories, or even just a single line about what part stayed with you. And if you'd like to hear more Western tales filled with hope, redemption, and the kind of love that stands tall against the hardest winters, please consider giving this video a like, subscribing to the channel, and turning on notifications. Your support helps keep these stories alive, and it means more than you know. Thank you for spending your time here with me today.